Welcome to CPR Saved My Life. Here we share real stories of survival, resilience, and the power of CPR. But remember, I'm a CPR instructor, a paramedic, and a heart health advocate, not a doctor. This show is for education and awareness, not medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider for medical concerns. Now, let's get into today's inspiring story. Over 500,000 people suffer cardiac arrest each year, and less than 10% of them survive. These are their stories of survival. Welcome to CPR Saved My Life, the show where we highlight powerful stories of survival and resilience in the face of sudden cardiac arrest. I'm Medic Manny, and in each episode, we explore the critical roles CPR, AEDs, and fast action play in saving lives and changing them forever. Today's guest is Svetlana Serigny, an extraordinary mother, advocate, and fighter. She's here to share the emotional and inspiring story of her son, Marc, whose life changed forever in early 2016 after a sudden cardiac arrest. This is a story about courage, determination, and the power of never giving up. Svetlana, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me to your broadcast, because I think it's very important to talk about, especially when it's considering for the pediatric out-hospital cardiac arrest. It's very rare cases when the child can survive such kind of cardiac arrest. And that's why I wrote a book exactly about his story. I think it's a very important story to tell.
And, sharing these kind of stories really helps highlight the difference. Cardiac disease is the biggest killer, not just in the United States, but across the world. And it seems like one big umbrella, cardiac arrest, but it is not. Lots of things can lead to cardiac arrest. And there are some, a lot of things we can do to make sure we prevent it and learn how to deal with it if it does happen. And it can really make a difference like it did for Marc. So again, thank you for being here. And we're going to jump into it. Now, Svetlana, can you tell us a little about Marc's life?
In fact, Marc's life before cardiac arrest as a child was absolutely normal. Marc was born absolutely normal child, even if I had EVF, and but when he was born, all doctors said that he's healthy, absolutely happy child. And just 4 years after his birth in 2011, we was absolutely happy family. We never knew that he had any kind of cardiac condition because he never was checked his ECG, his cardiogram. But it was normal life of the family. But we didn't know that he had any cardiac hidden condition. In fact, it was one of the points why I'm participating in such kind of podcast, in order to make an awareness about the cardiac health for the children and how it's important to check it. The family life, it was just happy life. Just happy life. He was traveling, he was in Disneyland, he was happy child, he was running, he was jumping, he was laughing, he was talking. He was absolutely normally development, neurological as a child till he's 4 years old.
So it really changed from one day to the next then for you.
Absolutely. It was very, very terrible day when it happened. In fact, it was absolutely normal day from the beginning. We was in McDonald's, and then we went to the covered play center. We have such covered play center for the children, with the playground, with slides and so on. And Marc, he know this play center already. We even had his birthday party there for 4 years old with his friends. So he know absolutely the place, and we were absolutely normal day. Absolutely normal day, and just one moment he disappeared from my sight. He was like here doing the slide, and the next moment, where is Marc? I was really anxious when I didn't saw him, and I started to search And I found him in one of the structure. And in fact, when I found him, he was like, he was still alive, but I saw his eyes rolling behind, and it was not naturally. And I was afraid, really afraid. I cried a lot, and I just was very anxious. And the director of the center, she came, and my husband came, and I had a chance that she knew CPR. She
Wow,
studied
good.
CPR as a
And
director of the
you
center,
before had
and
never
a
had any
friend
training?
of ours, and she started to do CPR, and she gave me the order how I have to do mouth to mouth. In fact, we were doing
So
CPR, not
she was
professional, not
teaching you.
professional because she's not professional. She just studied this like a program for to be a director of the center. That's all. She's
And
not paramedic.
she wasn't a paramedic, she just worked there.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And
And you
it
had no
was.
prior training?
No, I didn't before. I didn't had any training, but she had once, one training only, once before opening the center. And I think this saved life of my child. Honestly, I will be forever thankful to her to take it in her hands the way like we did CPR for Mark, because she called paramedic at once, and it took us 20 minutes before somebody arrived to help us with CPR. During 20
20
minutes, it
minutes.
was me and her.
Just you and her, were you guys doing chest compressions?
She was doing chest impression, and I was doing mouth to mouth.
You were doing the mouth to mouth. Okay.
Mouth to mouth on her count. She was counting, doing the chest impression, and she said me when I have to do mouth to mouth to my child.
So
And
she was
that's all.
showing you in the moment.
Yes, yes. And then it was first the military paramedics who came, and then the paramedics who came, and it was already 20 minutes past. I didn't know before it was 20 minutes. Was all around me. In fact, I wasn't feeling like to be in the place. I was doing action, but at the same time, like I was out somewhere.
You
I
were
don't
like
know. I
having an
can't
out of
explain this
body
feeling.
experience.
I don't know how to explain this experience. I was just praying. Honestly, I was just praying at the moment, praying in my head. And when the paramedics arrived, first they want to move me, but I refused to move. I stayed nearby my child when they continued to do CPR to my child. And in about 5 minutes, the chief of paramedics, he said me, okay, we got back his pulse, but he's in a very, very, very dangerous situation. Your child is
They
in a
have to
very
shock
dangerous
him.
situation. There is no choke. It was one of the point in Marc's CPR that they had not choked him. His cardiac pulse restarted himself only with CPR,
With the compressions.
with
And
the
there was no
compression.
AED in the
No,
area
in fact,
either.
in the center there was no NAD at all, but the paramedics, they had an AD.
They had an AED,
But
but they didn't have to use it.
they didn't use it because when they started the chest pressure, it come back by himself, and they didn't use it.
He didn't regain consciousness.
Absolutely not. He was intubated. He was the oxygen mask and so on. He was not moving. He was looked like that dead.
At
Even
this
even
point, you
if
said
they
it's,
said me he's breathing through the machine, it was not visible.
and up to this point, it had been about 25 minutes already.
Yes, in fact, we knew that it was 25 minutes because this center, such kind of center, they have cameras, and it was all on the cameras inside the center, children's center playground. And in fact, all these records from the cameras, doctors from the hospital, they got after that. And they said us that they could count exactly how long was the cardiac arrest from
So
the
they had it.
first compression until
Mhm.
the end when the paramedic said, okay, now we have pulse.
Yeah,
25 minutes.
and the only reason I'm even asking about time, because as you know, and in this situation, we'll get to it, the longer you do not have a pulse, the longer you go without CPR, the more anoxic, the less oxygen the brain is getting, and the more damage that can occur.
Absolutely, I know this. Of course, I studied this
Hmm.
afterwards. At the moment, I didn't know that.
You didn't know
But
any of that.
afterwards, I was reading, I was searching, and I know that we had a lot of chance that even he survived. Because
And the
generally,
CPR
after
again,
10 minutes, it's already very, very dangerous situation.
very.
And generally, after 20 minutes, you stop to make CPR because
Mhm.
no way you can. But sometimes miracles happens, in fact.
They do, and in my experience as a paramedic with children, they do a really good job at compensating, at holding it together, but it's like a cliff. They're running to the cliff, and once you get to the cliff, they just jump down and everything will crash. Whereas, adults have more of a chance of gradually going down. Kids do good, and then they are not anymore. And so, it's very good that he was able to get CPR right away because that really, really makes a difference with their recovery.
Yes, I think so. Because when I found him, as I saw his eyes go back, I think it was just the beginning. So we started CPR maybe really, really quickly. Even if it wasn't CPR by paramedics, it still was a CPR. It's a very important point. Yeah, absolutely.
Very, very good. Now, once he got to the hospital, um, I'm assuming they took him right to the emergency room, and he spent some time in the emergency room. What was that like?
In the hospital, it was, first of all, it was very long wait because, in fact, they don't give possibility to parents to be present, as you know. When you come to the hospital to the emergency like this, in fact, we were in the special room for parents and we are waiting for their medical consilium. And we were waiting about 7 hours without any news. Any news. We
Being
don't know
nothing
what
at
was
all, not being
happening,
able to
nothing,
see.
absolutely no news from any staff, medical staff. And after 7 hours, they called us, and it was like a lot of doctors in one room. I don't know how much, or a lot, 10, 7,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
always a lot of people.
And it was the first time I've heard the word Wolff,
Well,
Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome.
what is that?
What is that? It's exactly the reaction I had. So it was the first time they explained me that they found that Mark he has Wolff-Parkinson syndrome on his cardiogram, and it was detected after his cardiac arrest.
It's a very, very dangerous cardiac rhythm that you
Especially
can
in
have.
case of Mark, believe me, because after that doctor, cardiologist, he said me, in fact, Mark, during 4 years of his previous life, he never used a normal way. He used only cant ways. So his cardiac syndrome, Wolff-Parkinson-White, it was easily detectable on the simple cardiogram because he was
All it was
using only
leaking.
cant way. He was multiple cant ways because Mark, he had, after that, we had 5 ablations.
5
Five.
ablations. Now,
Five.
ablation, just so I can explain that a little bit, an ablation, when somebody has a crazy heart rhythm, it's usually coming and can be created from a different cell than what we would normally want it to. It's like having an electrical pathway and then some little short over here on this side that's causing some disturbance. It's an ablation, they go in and they have to deal with that short. They basically cauterize that part of the heart and kill those cells and make sure that the electrical conduction can get through effectively. And it can be, it's a very dangerous rhythm. And they do ablations for a lot of things, most commonly atrial fibrillation these days. You can catch it beforehand with a simple EKG, like you said, Svetlana, and it's so important. And there's legislation going around the United States where they're trying it to make sure that, for example, here in San Diego, they had a fair before school this year where they brought in all the kids that were going to be competing in sports, and they had to get a physical done. Basically, a quick 20-minute EKG. It's a quick questionnaire. It's one sheet questionnaire that they've come up with, and they catch them because, just like we've seen football players collapse on the field from these type of things, they can be prevented, they can be caught, and it takes a simple EKG to
Yes.
be able to do that, but you
That's
really don't
exactly my
know
point. In
what's
fact,
happening.
Mark, he had a medical clearance to start judo when he
Oh
was
wow.
3 years old and
Hmm.
no ECG. So in
No
his case,
EKG
I
done.
think it's exactly what I'm advocating for here in France to get ECG to children, especially if they get clearance for sports. And we don't have such program like you have in the United States and France. And I think it must be put such kind of program at any case for children who are starting sports.
It's so easy to do, and
I know. And it's not
and
very expensive.
I was just gonna say that it does not cost a lot of money at all to do it, and it saves lives. It really does save lives, and it's important to know that, children, at least here in the United States, I know that 23,000 suffer cardiac arrest every single year, and most children do have good hearts. It can be from a respiratory issue, but there are congenital heart problems that kids are born with that they don't know about or doesn't get identified until they get active, till they get to that age where they're, being physical and playing in sports. And not just jumping around and playing and running, but actually being physical in sports. That's usually when it happens, and then they go into cardiac arrest. And as you know, not very many of them survive. And so a simple EKG that can catch it ahead of time. As you know, they can go in and do ablations and they can do things that fix it and will change that quality of life so much. And so I love, Svetlana, that you are advocating for this because it's such an important thing that we need, not just in the US and France, but all over for kids.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you, especially that afterwards when you can understand that it could be prevented, it's difficult to hear. Very difficult to hear this from doctors. And in fact, I've heard it from Italian doctor because, even with ablation, it was a long story. Mark, he had 3 ablations in France, and first doctor who did ablation in Grenoble, he said me that his Wolff-Parkinson-White was placed so deeply that he can't ablate it him completely, and he had to cut his heart. So we went to Paris, to Necker. It's the biggest hospital for cardiac person in France. And there we had another doctor, the second one, who tried also ablation on Marc. And she said that radiofrequency, it was not deep enough to make an ablation. And she started to tell me about open heart operation. And then I started to search a lot about Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, and I found Professor Poponi in Italy. I found that he was one of 20 doctors in the world who was writing the rules for the doctors who
And he was in
operate,
Italy, you said?
rules how to do the ablation. And I contacted him
You
directly
said,
to his mail.
you
And he
said,
answered me.
hello, I'm Svetlana
And he
and I
answered
need
me.
your help.
He answered me because, when you search on the medical databases, you can find mails or even from professor. They use for medical publication. So I contacted him on his medical mail, and he answered me, and he said me, you come here and I will ablate your child. And he ablated him. He ablated him where 2 French doctors didn't succeed to ablate him. So he stopped his flicainidine. He didn't need it anymore. And from 2018, after ablation of Dr. Paponi, he don't need any flicainidine, and there is no Wolff-Parkinson-White on his OCG, which we check, of course, every year.
Hmm. So so it fixed it. And of course, we're not here to give medical advice, but this is why, second and third and fourth opinions are so
Exactly.
important. And research, do your research. It's at our fingertips now, unlimited information. And as long as you take a little bit of time to look into it and read and check multiple sources, because, everything at the end of the day, every doctor can have an opinion and they can look at somebody's medical information and come up with slightly different diagnoses from person to person, and they all have different experiences as well. So it's really important to do some research and try to find what will work best for your situation. And in this case, it was, you know, leaving to go to it. You guys left to Italy, correct? To go do it?
Yes, he was ablated successfully in Italy by Dr. Papone. And by the way, if you search, he's very famous in the cardiology world because he has a special method which is named cardiac ablation, Dr. Papone method of ablation. And he has a lot of work in Brugada syndrome and Wolff-Parkinson syndrome. So
So he
it's his
specializes specifically.
specialization. Yep.
Mhm. And we'll put the information here just so you guys can check out a little bit more about this
He
stuff.
ablated, he was on the TV, in the Italian TV about 2 years ago. He ablated the youngest child in the world, I think 18 months, with
Wow.
Wolff-Parkinson syndrome.
They found it. That's the thing is, 18
They
months,
found it
they
from
found
me because we have a group of discussion with parents. And so I contacted the mom of this child and she found Dr. Papone and the child was saved by Dr. Papone after
and
that. This is a good
you
result, yeah.
you mentioned doing EKGs every day with Mark now. It's just part of your routine.
Yep.
I love that you do whatever it takes. Obviously, you love your son very much, and anybody would probably do this for their child. But in these special situations, Svetlana, you really did go above and beyond to make sure that Mark got the best care possible during the time that it was happening, as well as during his recovery. Because it doesn't just end with getting the cardiac arrest. There's recovery that it's going to take in order to make sure that the patients come back without neurological deficits because
Exactly.
your heart's not pumping for minutes. In this case, you guys were lucky to get there right away and start the compressions, and your chances of survival without CPR diminish very rapidly as time goes on. It's like 10% per minute. And so you could imagine if it took 20 minutes for the ambulance to get there, if you wait that long, there's no survival. That quick action is what really truly made a difference in his recovery, I'm sure. I do know that you guys struggled with some brain injury. Can you
Yes,
tell us
because
about
we
that?
have a brain injury, because on his MRI we have, first they said us just 80% of his brain was damaged after we had his MRI. And as a
And
parent, we can hear 20% still here. So, but at any case, we know all that MRI, it's not exact science also. Okay, we can see brain damage on thalamus and the basal ganglia on Marc MRI.
on those
Yes, we
specific
have.
parts of the
That
brain,
means they have. He was at the beginning. He was recognized like 80% disabled at the beginning.
80% disabled.
80% disabled.
And
Yeah, I have a papers. Yeah.
can we go back just for a second? Can you tell me about when he first woke up? How was it when he,
I
um,
wasn't here. They don't give possibility to parents to be present when they wake
at
up a
all,
child from coma in
at all?
France. So that it was only doctors. But when they wake him up, first they come to me and they said he woke up and said one word, "Mom." That's all. So when we came back and saw him, he still was like intubated, breathing through the machine with the cold protocol, when they put all the cold covers around his body to bring down his temperature of the body. And he had a lot of medication, of course, a lot of machines beeping around him.
So many machines, so many
A lot, a lot.
tubes.
I don't have any photos, any videos of this period. In fact, I don't have any photos and videos from the first almost 2 month period. I
It was
started to
scary
film
when
it
you,
for family 2 months later. When he started to say me, mom, he wasn't, first when he wake up, he wasn't talking to me a long time. And first word he said me, it was like a whisper. When they took off the big trachea, and they left only small tubes in his nose to still breathe through the machine, partly, but not completely, because they just started to make it lower and lower through machine, and he started to breathe by himself more and more. It was a
They
long
like wean him
period.
off of the breathing machine.
Yes, yes, from the machine. And then when he was about 30% on the machine yet, he told me, Mom, it was about 2 weeks after he was woke up from the coma. And he was blind. I know that he was blind during 3 weeks, and we had no anybody who checked his eyes sight in the hospital, but we know that he was blind, and we understood that he started to see something when he started to see animals on the walls. You know, we have sometimes colored animals on the rooms of children in the hospitals, and it was a big happiness when we saw that he started to see something, because before he was understand if it was mom or mom or father nearby him just by our voices. We saw that he can't see us. We touched him, but he can't see us. He cried a lot. It was a lot of neurostorming, as you can imagine, first period. And when he saw the first animal on the wall, it was a small crocodile, green one. My husband started to bring a lot of books, children's books with a lot of colored pictures, and I started to walk with him directly while he was still on cardiac machine, because you can imagine at this period he wasn't yet ablated. He was all the time checked by his cardiac pulse,
Oh,
and
geez.
he was on the cardiac machine
He
checking
hadn't had any
his status.
treatment for his heart
Yep,
rhythm yet.
yep. The
They
first
were just
ablation, it
hoping.
was about 1 month after cardiac arrest only. It was
His first.
found, and it was in adult hospital, because in Grenoble we don't have children ablation, and it was an equipment for adults,
Oh, I wonder
because we
why.
don't have equipment for children in Grenoble. So he was ablated first time with equipment for adults.
For an
But he was
adult, because
a big child for his age. He was already 24 kilos at this period, 4 years old. And he was first ablation. In fact, it was just to minimize risk of next cardiac arrest. Let's say it like this.
well, that's not very reassuring. Let's do this, but it's not gonna fix it. It's just gonna put a band-aid on it for right now.
Yeah, I saw when I brought him for the first ablation, I was in the car, because he was brought by the car to the hospital for the adults, and in the car I saw his pulse 380 going to the operation room. When you see your child pulse 380, just, and he
What?
he was afraid, he was
That's like
crying.
that's abnormally high. It's very, 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 very high.
It's very high. So after that, first ablation, he still was. We were in the reanimation part of the hospital till almost 3 months. 3 months in the reanimation part of the hospital, and in fact, he's conscious, and his possibility to eat, not through the tubes by mouth, it came very slowly during this period.
So they were having to feed him through a feeding tube
Yes,
that they put in.
yes.
Did they
No,
have to
they
surgically
put a
put it
feeding
in?
tube through the nose, through the
Okay,
nose.
okay.
I don't know why, with the liquid through the nose in France. It was
Mhm. Oh, wow.
through the nose. And then they had to start to feed him normal food, because he took it by himself
Because he pulled it
one
out.
day.
So what they do is they put feeding tubes in when people aren't able to eat, especially when they're in a comas or in their long recoveries, or even after a stroke and they lose the ability to swallow. And so they will put in what we call a gastric tube, which can be done through the mouth, it can be done through the nose, or they can surgically go and put one right into the stomach, and then they put like an Ensure kind of protein drink with all the nutrients that the patient needs into that. So Mark was getting it through eating through his nose, and then
through
he
his
said,
nose.
"I'm
One
done."
day
And he
he just
swallowed
take it
it.
off, and it was the moment then the doctor said, okay, if he took it off, let's start with something like Gilors, they starting with something really light. And he could, when I gave him, of course, by mouth, he could to swallow, even if he was swallowing like from one part of the head. He was turning his head while swallowing. I don't know why. It was difficult to swallow, but he could swallow. And after that, they decided not to put again the feeding tube, and just it was the purees and everything he could swallow.
Very soft foods.
Yes, but in any case, it was positive for us because we can swallow, we can sit yet, we can't yet talk really. We can say some words. Marm, generally he said marm and pain. It was two big words I remember from the spirit.
Oh,
He was crying a lot. It's a child, and only one thing calmed down my child in the spirit. It was my voice. I was singing a lot of the spirit. Honestly, I was singing to him, and he still remember these songs because I was singing in Russian.
so he can still
My
remember the
native
song.
language. It was a songs for children in Russian, and he don't speak Russian. My child don't speak Russian, but he remember words of
He
this
remembers it.
of these songs. It's crazy.
Wow.
Our mind sometimes it could be crazy because of course I stopped to talk to my child in Russian. I restarted to talk only in French in order to gain back his French because we lost his French, and Russian it was not a point at the point. Only one thing what I was doing in Russian, I was singing for him to get asleep, and still he, even 9 years later, he remembered what. It's funny.
What
This
it's
song.
crazy how the mind works like that, where he probably doesn't remember a lot of things from that time, but he remembers, little things like the
He
songs
don't
and
remember anything from this time. I already asked him because now we have a chance after all these years that, let's say, in the cognitive way, Mark is almost normal, almost. I will say it like this because he's very logical child. He's very strong in character. He understands everything. He's very good in mathematics.
oh, good.
Really, really good in mathematics. But and when I asked him, Mark, do you remember something, anything from this period? He said, Mom, I prefer even not to remember anything because it could be much more difficult to remember something and to know that now I can't do this and that and something else. In the way, I just remember that I always was like this, and I have to walk with some difficulties, and I have difficulties sometimes to make my phrases and so on. And he's used to it, in fact. And in his mind, he prefers not to remember.
Yeah, it's become normal for him now to deal with some of those deficits that he's still experiencing, but it sounds like how old is he now?
13 years old. He's
13.
he's teenager. He's
He's a
now have
teenager
all the
now.
teenager behavior. Believe me, he loved to play Xbox and Fortnite and
All the
Minecraft.
all the teenager things. Well, that's
Really teenager
beautiful
thing.
that, despite 80%, injury to the brain initially, the fact that he is able to live almost what sounds like a almost normal life again,
Almost,
almost.
we still have, of course, he still have gross motor functions problems. He can't run, he can't jump. He can walk, but not very long distances. For example, we use Alinker, like walking bike, when we have to go far away. And but he go to the normal school. He has a problem with reading. He can't read so quickly like it needed for the normal school, but he can read. But he prefer, for example, listen the audiobooks or podcast or YouTubers or something what is interesting about.
That's okay. My mom's an English teacher. I hate reading. It is not my favorite, but I love listening. I'll listen to books. I'll read. I say I read with my ears.
Yes,
It's
he's
just
doing the same. For example, he has audiobooks, all the Harry Potter audiobooks he knows by heart. It's his point of interest, as well as any teenager. He loves YouTubers, as you know.
of course, of course. That's the life of a teenager. And it's beautiful that, you guys are able to get to this point in life. And I know that there's never going to be 100% security as a mom where you're not going to be worrying about this. It's always probably going to be in the back of your mind.
Yes, still you are worrying about this because we have to be honest. It's very difficult for the people with disabilities to get through the world. So he still have disability, even if not 80% like it was predicted by doctors, it's still 20%. So when you can't do, for example, sports like everybody's school, that means you need adaptive sports. Our school is not so adaptive. Or, for example, when you can't run with your friends, but he has a lot of neurotypical friends. And last time, for example, he was even invited to the birthday party, and his best friend, he organized everything, and even laser game was adapted to him. Everybody had to run, and they was teams, and Mark, he was like a Terminator. He can't be touched. He can't be touched by laser. He if you touch him, you lose points. So
Oh,
he was a special team who go everywhere and search everybody and, and search
oh,
them
that's
just by walking, just with his speed.
what good friends
he,
he has to just, accommodate him and not make him feel
he has a good
different,
friends.
but make
Yes,
him feel
this is
even
really
special.
great to have a good friends.
That sounds
It helps.
wonderful. Now that you're living after this, is Mark still doing any type of therapy or treatment as far as
Absolutely.
his cognitive
Absolutely.
abilities?
Therapy is a part of our life now. And sports, a lot of sports, adaptive sports. He's doing hiking, he's doing climbing, swimming, ski, adaptive ski. We have go to ski special equipment to do ski.
That's
But he can swim without even adaptation. For example, swimming it's one of the sports he prefer because he can swim just with glasses like you and me. He swim better than me, I think. But he had a personal trainer for this, personal teacher for swimming.
reflecting back, how did this whole experience change your outlook on life as a parent, as a person, just navigating the world?
I think it's changed my point of vision because I understand that in life the most important thing it's not money and it's not to be successful and something like this. It's love. It's happiness, and it's to be in the real moment and to get maximum from the real moment from your family, and family is important point, and friends. For me it changed a lot the point of view of the life, and especially I think it's how you accept life with differences, and everybody is different. Everybody have problems in life, even the people with the healthy absolutely healthy people, they have
The
other
richest,
problems.
healthiest people will have problems
Other
in life.
problems. So it's all the point of view, I think, how we accept our life and what we can do through it from our life and what we can. And in fact, Mark, he studied me a big lesson in this life that he was always happy child before his cardiac arrest, and he stayed happy child. That's why he had a lot of friends and neurotypical friends, because he loved to make jokes and he's happy. I see so many children, teenagers, they have everything in life and they are not happy, and he's still happy.
He really puts the meaning in survivor. This podcast focuses on cardiac arrest survivors, and he is surviving. He's living the life of a survivor. And it sounds like you guys have learned how to really balance and, the gratitude in your life, as well as the grief in your day-to-day life that you guys may still experience. And it sounds like you've really done a good job of balancing it. But I know that the struggle probably is always there.
Absolutely. I think the most important thing you have to study from the life that if you have love in family, and I think Mark, he feel this love from everybody in the family, from his friends, and in fact this love pushing him to even to go higher than his limits. And he will be always trying to go out of the limits. There is no limits in life. And it was one of the points, for example, when I asked him last year, I asked him, if you want, I will send you your medical description and your medical records to make a wish. And we have a wish coin.
Oh,
Really, really,
yay.
we are waiting it. We are waiting
Sure,
it.
wait.
Wish coin,
What
that
is
means
on
that they took us seriously and they promised us to make it. But
what's on
it's
his
very
list?
difficult wish.
Does he have a list of things he wants to do or that he wants to try and get done?
Yes, and he asked me something I never thought. I was stupid. Really, I was stupid because Mark, when he asked me to fill this Make-A-Wish formula, he asked me, okay, Mom, my first wish is to meet Mr. Beast. You know who Mr. Beast is? I was stupid. I didn't know it. I wrote it.
You wrote it on his list.
Because I knew Dr. Papone with Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, I was studied the question, but I never studied who was the YouTuber. Mr. Beast.
Oh,
I just wrote, it was, okay, it's one of YouTuber, you're watching, okay, great. you know?
and Make-A-Wish is really such a great organization. I have
Yes, but
cousins.
it's very difficult wish. I know. That's why when they called me, especially from France, I said, maybe after the awards, I started to search who was Mr. Beast, because you have to make three lists on the make a wish. You have to ask 3 points. So
For
we have the
Make-A-Wish, you
second
asked
and the
for
third one, less famous YouTubers, of course. But Mark, he wants to meet YouTuber
you have
because
to
he
make
wants to become
YouTubers.
YouTuber.
Yeah, so for Make-A-Wish, you have to create a list of 3 things that, are your wish of things to do. I have cousins that just did Make-A-Wish this last year.
Because we didn't yet realize our wish. We are waiting. We are on a waiting list. We are always on the contact. We'll see. We'll see.
I
I
hope
will
it
let you
happens.
know.
You hear that, Make-A-Wish? Make it happen. Make it happen. Give
Yes,
Mark his wish of meeting the beast.
we'll see. In any case, meeting a YouTuber because he's really, really wish this. And honestly, I think in his head, it's just normal wish. And in mine also, it was a normal wish. It was just YouTuber to meet. It's okay. It's somebody, celebrity, it's something they're doing all the time. Why not?
Why not? I hope you the best with the Make-A-Wish. Now, as we start wrapping up, I always want to, the purpose of this podcast is to share survivor stories, cardiac arrest survivor stories of people that, like I said earlier, it's a big umbrella, but each story is individual. Each story has different points, but there is one common denominator between all of these stories, and that is what happens within those first few minutes after the cardiac arrest occurs. And as you know, CPR, AED, and quick action to advanced healthcare really is truly the big difference that will save Mark's life and saves other survivors' lives. So that is definitely the common denominator. And the point of this podcast is to point out, there are a lot of things that we can do to prevent the cardiac arrest from occurring. And when it does occur, there are things that we can be prepared for that are simple to do, easy to do, and I love bringing awareness, not just around CPR, but even AEDs. Why didn't they have an AED at
Absolutely.
that location? And that really is what, when your heart goes into cardiac arrest, the electricity is usually short circuiting. So it needs a reset. And that reset really does make a big difference. And I'm glad that you guys were able to provide quick action. And so, with that said, what is it that you would like to share with parents and communities about CPR and AEDs?
I will say this absolutely the same. I will be very short in this point. I think there are 3 very important things to do to make it better than we're doing it now. It's first, learn CPR. It's easy to do. I did.
Learn it.
I did because I took lessons afterwards.
Mhm.
Second, I'm pushing to make an IEDs in every school and every playground.
They should
But
be
because we
everywhere.
don't have it. We don't have
Mhm.
it in schools. And I think it's not normal. It's my point. And the third point, I'm really advocating to make an ECG cardiogram for all children, especially before starting sports.
Yeah,
So it
before.
must be organized. These 3 points, I think it's very important thing to do for our children's health.
I love that you made it short and sweet. Learn CPR, get access to AEDs, especially for our children, and do these health screenings. The health screening is less than 20 minutes. It's 10 questions and a quick EKG. It saves lives. It makes
And we
sense.
can do it at schools.
You can do it at the schools. We can facilitate them. There's already nurses or some type of healthcare provider in the schools that could do it. It is easy to do. You know, when we were little kids, I remember they would line us all up and check for lice. When back in the 90s, they would, put us under a light and check for lice. Why can't we send them and do the same thing, but, quick EKG and questionnaire? I think we need it. Not I think. I know we need it. I know it'll save lives. And I love that that's your message for everybody. Now,
If,
you wrote a book. It's called Mark the Invincible, a true story of my son's resurrection from cardiac arrest, followed by anoxic brain damage. Now, I read the book over the last few days, and I love that it's like a journal. It was your journal, basically, of what happened from day to day, and you were able to compile it in a way to create a story. Uh, a very beautiful, engaging story, and it's an easy, quick read. And the other thing that I love about it, Svetlana, before I let you talk on it, is the uh, EKGs that you put in throughout the book. It's almost like it separates your different journal entries, but it is just repeated over and over and over. And I'm assuming it's WPW, the
yeah,
rhythm, which
exactly,
your son had.
exactly. I also put an MRI inside.
So,
In fact, book I wrote later in 2019. It was already after we solved his cardiac problem. And I felt that I need to do something. In fact, I was meeting with some of psychological doctors, and I was talking with them because, of course, I have PTSD. It's obvious. I was doing CPR on my own child. How you come not to have PTSD?
you're
But
not yet.
I thought that this help from the even professionals, doctors, it was not enough. I need to took it out, to put it somehow on the paper, and to tell everything I really think. And in fact, book helped me with this, and I found just a writer who can help me put it in good way because the original book it was written in French language.
Oh, okay.
And then I did a translation on in English, in the English with the help of the professional translator, because English also it's not my native language, so it's better always to use a professional for such kind of work. And it was like a journal, like you said, and it was some kind of psychological therapy for me, in fact.
You're so vulnerable in it. You really do show a vulnerable side of your feelings and, all the emotions, happy, anger,
Anger,
sadness,
everything, like
scared.
it.
Your feelings are so raw in the book. And that really was special to me because, it's not easy to be vulnerable, but especially to share that with the world and in such a beautiful way. I really do love that you did that and that it's translated and on Amazon and lots of places. And it's definitely something that I think can really help people advocate. Like you said earlier, 3 easy things that we can do to make a difference and save lives of not just everybody, but especially children. Well, Svetlana, can we meet Mark?
Yes, just a moment.
Okay.
Marcos.
Gonna meet Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Nice
How
to
are you
meet
doing?
you.
Okay? No? Uh,
Oh,
he
thank you,
just don't
Mark.
speak English, you know,
I
it's
know.
but he's
Thank you
like,
for letting us share his
yes,
story. Of course.
he's
Nice
just
to meet you,
here and
Mark.
he's watching
Uh,
his preferable YouTuber on online now. After school and
Love.
he just
Well, Svetlana, again, thank you for your courage, your vulnerability, and your relentless advocacy. Your story is really gonna touch a lot of hearts and hopefully save lives.
oh, thank you. I also want to thank you that you give me this possibility to talk because I think it's very important what you are doing with your podcasts. It's very,
Well,
very important thing you are doing. I'm
thank
really
you very much,
thankful
Svetlana.
that you choose us to tell our story.
Yeah, it's my passion, as a paramedic. It's one of the things I fell in love with was the heart, and the more you dove into the heart, the bigger you learn it really is. And no pun intended, but I love the heart, and I love the fact that something can be done about it. And that's where my passion comes from, is just making sure that we can do something so simple to save lives. And to our listeners, if you haven't yet, please, 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 please take a CPR class, advocate for AEDs in your communities, and support efforts towards early heart screening in children. Awareness is the first step towards prevention. And so, thank you for hanging out and becoming aware today. And thanks for watching CPR Save My Life. Be sure to subscribe, share, and help us spread these life saving stories. I appreciate you, Svetlana, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you, Manny. Bye.